Imagine walking down Greenwood Avenue on a warm spring evening in 1920, the sound of jazz spilling from the Dreamland Theater mixing with the gentle hum of prosperity that seemed to rise from the very sidewalks. The street lights illuminate storefront windows displaying fine clothing, jewelry, and books, businesses owned by people who, according to the laws of neighboring states, weren't supposed to be capable of such success. This was the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, known to its residents simply as home, but recognized across the nation as Black Wall Street, the most prosperous African American community in the United States. In just 18 months, this thriving neighborhood would be reduced to ashen memory, destroyed not by economic collapse or natural disaster, but by a coordinated attack that revealed how quickly the American dream could become an American nightmare when prosperity wore the wrong skin color. The Greenwood district existed because of a peculiar combination of legal segregation and entrepreneurial determination that created something unintended by the architects of Jim Crow. When Oklahoma achieved statehood in 1907, its laws mandated racial separation in everything from schools to cemeteries, forcing Black citizens to create their own parallel economy. What white legislators intended as limitation became liberation of a sort. If African Americans couldn't shop in white stores, they would build better ones. If they couldn't stay in white hotels, they would create establishments that offered hospitality their own community had never experienced in the outside world. By 1921, Greenwood housed over 10,000 residents in a 35-square-block area that contained virtually everything a community could need. Dr. A.C. Jackson, recognized as one of the most skilled surgeons in the region, performed operations that white doctors traveled to observe. The Tulsa Star newspaper, owned and operated by A.J. Smitherman, circulated throughout the Southwest, providing a voice for African American concerns that mainstream papers ignored. Children attended schools that were better funded than many white institutions, taught by teachers who had been educated at prestigious universities but couldn't find employment elsewhere due to racial barriers that inadvertently concentrated talent in Greenwood. The community's prosperity rested on a foundation more solid than mere commerce. It was built on the kind of social capital that emerges when people understand their mutual dependence. Bank President J.B. Stratford didn't simply loan money, he invested in dreams, knowing that his neighbor's success ensured his own. Families like the Williamses, who owned multiple properties and businesses, understood that their wealth meant nothing if their community remained vulnerable, so they reinvested locally rather than seeking acceptance in white society that would never fully welcome them anyway. This success, however, bred resentment among some white Tulsans who found the very existence of Black Wall Street challenging to their assumptions about racial hierarchy and economic competence. The sight of African Americans driving fine automobiles, wearing fashionable clothes, and living in houses nicer than those of many white families created a cognitive dissonance that demanded resolution. If Black success was supposed to be impossible under the natural order of things, then Black success must be somehow illegitimate, temporary, or threatening to the stability that kept everyone in their proper place. The incident that sparked the massacre was both utterly predictable and completely avoidable. A young Black man, Dick Rowland, was accused of assaulting a white woman, Sarah Page, in a downtown elevator. The actual nature of their interaction remains disputed, with evidence suggesting it was likely an accidental encounter blown out of proportion by racial paranoia and sensationalist journalism. But truth became irrelevant once the Tulsa Tribune published an inflammatory account that transformed a minor incident into a rallying cry for white vigilantism. On the evening of May 31, 1921, a mob of white men gathered at the courthouse where Rowland was being held, their intentions clear despite their lack of official authority. What a group of armed Black veterans, many of whom had recently returned from fighting for democracy in Europe, arrived to ensure Rowland received fair treatment. The confrontation escalated with tragic inevitability. A shot was fired, by whom remains unclear, and within minutes, the two groups were engaged in a firefight that would provide the pretext for what followed. What happened next transcended spontaneous racial violence and entered the realm of coordinated destruction. White mobs, many deputized by city officials and armed with weapons provided by local authorities, invaded Greenwood with the systematic efficiency of a military operation. They didn't simply attack people, they destroyed the infrastructure of prosperity itself. Banks were robbed before being burned, insurance records were deliberately destroyed to prevent claims, and successful businesses were looted of both inventory and equipment before being reduced to rubble. The attack continued for nearly 18 hours, during which airplanes, some of the first used in domestic violence in American history, dropped incendiary devices on rooftops while ground forces moved methodically through the district. Residents who had spent decades building their American dream watched it disappear in a single day, their life's work reduced to smoke that could be seen for miles. Families fled with whatever they could carry, often just the clothes on their backs, becoming refugees in their own country. The aftermath revealed the depth of the conspiracy to destroy Black prosperity in Tulsa. City officials initially estimated property damage in the millions, but insurance companies, working with local authorities, systematically denied claims on technicalities. Zoning laws were quickly changed to prevent rebuilding, and many white-owned businesses moved quickly to acquire Greenwood property at devastated prices. The message was clear: Black success would be tolerated only until it became inconvenient for white interests. What makes the Tulsa Massacre particularly tragic is how thoroughly it was erased from public memory. For decades, it was omitted from textbooks, ignored by historians, and rarely discussed even among survivors who carried the trauma in silence. Children grew up in Tulsa unaware that their city had once been home to one of the most prosperous African American communities in the world, or that it had been deliberately destroyed by their neighbors' grandparents. The Greenwood district was eventually rebuilt, but never regained its former prosperity. The social networks that had created Black Wall Street were scattered, the accumulated wealth was gone, and the trust that had bound the community together was damaged beyond easy repair. The massacre didn't just destroy buildings. It eliminated a generation of Black wealth and demonstrated to African American communities nationwide the precarious nature of success in a society that had never fully accepted their right to achieve it. Sleep peacefully tonight, remembering that the most dangerous threats to justice are often those that disguise themselves as law and order, and that the price of prosperity is eternal vigilance against those who would destroy others' dreams rather than build their own, and that sometimes the most important stories are the ones that took the longest to tell.